All right, hello. How are you doing, everybody? I hope you all had a great weekend, and I hope you all have a great week ahead. The chapters just came out today, so let's go ahead and have a look at everything, shall we? First up, we're going to do Naruto, chapter 622, titled It Reached. All right, and one more thing before I start. I know this may seem a little funny or sound a little funny reviewing chapters, which to most of you all is a week late. But they did just come out today. Like I say, that's my whole thing about it. Doing the weekly Shonen Jump edition. They just came out today in Japan, and so which means that we just get them today. Also, so this right here is the official translation we get, and I'm just giving you a perspective of what I get being a Shonen Jump member from the translation, and there may be some differences from some of the other translations that you all have read, either on whatever translation site you review your material on. All right, so let's go ahead and pick up from where we left off last week. So right now we're back to Madara and Hashirama, and Madara is asking him, he said, hey, I asked you, who are you? And he says, my first name's Harashima, but I can't tell you my family name. So what we have here, obviously for the reasons of safety, you don't want to tell your last name, your family name, like Shinju or Uchiha. And we did get introduced to another clan, which we hadn't seen, which I'll get to in a minute. So they continue skipping rocks, amidst their conversation. And from what we've seen so far, Hashirama and Madara are different from Naruto and Sasuke from when they were younger. Right now, Hashirama's, he's really depressed and he's really sad, because he did just lose his younger brother, which is also pretty messed up. His brother was only 7 years old, and in the way he died, yeah, it was a pretty sad death. So he's dealing with that right now. But this is very interesting, dealing with children in war. Like I did hear other reviewers talk about, this does happen in the real world. This isn't just, sadly, it's not something that's just made up, for a story. I wish it were, but for as long as we know throughout history, we know for many thousands of years, there have been many children forced to fight wars for whatever reason. I mean, it's always some dumbass, who wants to force the children to go fight their war for their cause. And I mean, with no regard for life at all, no regard for their lives at all. They're not even human. They're just, tools to be disposed of. If they get killed, oh well. If they kill them, so it's pretty sad. It's really, like I say, it's very interesting, and also, you know, I don't know how many of you all look at what's going on in the world or have looked at what actually happens in the world, but it's pretty sad. Okay, what we have here, like I said, Madara's still skipping rocks, and they haven't quite reached the other side yet. And what we get here is it's a pretty funny scene with Madara seeing his personality. He talks about how he's really sensitive, and how because Hashirama was standing behind him when he was throwing the rocks, and how he said that he can't peel somebody is standing behind him. So like I was saying, yeah, it's very interesting how different they are. I know a lot of people were talking about how the story would be very similar, if not the exact same as Naruto and Sasuke. But so far, with how their personalities are, they're completely different from Naruto and Sasuke altogether. And like I talked about, Harashimi is really, he's really depressed. He's which is kind of funny in a way. They continue to have their conversation, and Madara's like, wow, you really, Madara says that you have an obnoxious neurosis. And you telling him to go, and then Hashirama start to walk away, and he's like, "No, wait a second." And how Hashirama's like, "Well, which is it? Why don't you be clear?" So just normal kid stuff, which should have been. And then we see a body floating in a river, and Hashirama walks on the water to go check it out, and Madara notices that he's a shinobi. He sees the crest on it as the Hagoromo clan. So he goes off and he says the war is coming soon. So he goes off like I did say earlier. We see the multiple graves, and we do see his younger brother Kawarama, and he was only 7 years old. And so we see here Hashirama and his other two brothers, and they're all sad, standing up with their father. He's giving them speeches about, shinobi are born into the world to fight and die. And you really you really get a sense of how Hashirama felt about it, and then he really does make the most sense with it because he's like, well, all of this is just, the consequences of this is that children are dying, you know. Children are dying, Like I said, his brother was only 7 years old, his younger brother. He's saying the children must be sacrificed. It's pretty messed up. And his father does strike him for that comment, and he gets mad. And he was, what we have here is two different generational points of views. The father's obviously been hard in the war, grew up with it. That's just the way it is, and the way they see to go about peace is just, hey, once the other people are dead, we stop them, we kill all them off, then we can have peace. And Hashirama's like, well, there has to be some other way. Why can't we find a better way to go about doing this? Okay. And so we see his other brother, we see Toby, and the other brother, Itami. So let me skip ahead some here. Hold on, give me one moment. Okay, what we have here, Tobirama saying adults are stupid. If they want to get rid of wars, they ought to just sign pacts and stop fighting. And we hear the other brother Tommy says, but what about our kid? But what of our killed parents and siblings? What about our feelings, our fallen comrades? Keep saying that and you'll find yourself dead as well. Is what Tobirama says. He says both you and the adults are too hot-headed. Forthcoming shinobi must suppress their emotions, create suitable rules that they then follow and avoid extraneous conflict. And Hashirama's asking, can a true pact and alliance be achieved? And it said, what's a true alliance? The era of warring states when the average life expectancy of both shinobi and citizens was around 30 years. And what was keeping that so low was the deaths of many children. And with that statement, we do see his younger brother, Kawirama, surrounded by 5 people. Looks to be 4 Uchiha and one of the Haragomo clan. And obviously like I say, it's pretty sad. He's very scared. You can see the fear in his face, being surrounded by so many. He's crying because he's scared, surrounded. And there's just not much he can do, seeing how there's a big age difference between him and the people surrounding him. They're at least, I'd say, probably 17 years old or older, and he's only 7. So yeah, not much, it's not much he can do, you know, and we do see here other Shinju do come along, but, Tommy's dead, very sad, and like I say, and so we find out the reason why Hashirama goes to the river. It's a place for him. It's a place for him to go where he can find some kind of peace. He said, feels like all the haziness in his heart gets washed away when he stares at the water. And we get Madara seemingly has a similar viewpoint to Hashirama, and, Madara's, Hashirama asks him, do you have any siblings as well? He says, I'm one of 5 kids. Okay, so we find out that he's one of 5 children. He said, well, there used to be 5 of us. So out of 5 children that including him, all 5 are not alive. So in this translation, we definitely know that all 5 are still, we don't know how many of the 5 are alive besides Madara, who we see right now. So you can only speculate, or maybe it should be shown, I would say, in the coming chapters up ahead. They go to talk about, we're shinobi, we never know when we might die. If there were a way neither side had to die, it would be both sides revealed their bellies, hid nothing from each other, and poured each other drinks and drank together like brothers, is what Madara is saying. So, yeah, see what we have here is the beginning. You see the beginnings of the friendship between Madara and Hashirama. And during the conversation, they really find out, yeah, they both want peace and they both want to find a way without the fighting. A way for everybody to understand each other. Because if you can understand what the next person and the next person can understand you, you can have a real chance to, be friends, be cool, and really communicate and basically be civilized, you know, and that's just the truth of, truth of the matter. And we see finally Madara does make it across the stream with the rock skipping, just like Hashirama, and it says, look at that. Seems like there finally will be a way this time. It's not just about yours. Mine also reached the other side. So what we have there is the end of the chapter. This was a very enjoyable chapter, but a very sad one as well. Like I do say, children fighting wars is something that should just would have been what should have been just is something as a science fiction, just stuff written in books about or made in movies should never have been in real life, but sadly that is the world we do live in. That is the reality of it. So many children, you know, just won't get to enjoy life at all. You know, and in reading this, it really, it's a really sad reality of the world. So you really do get a chance to see that from this chapter. Like I said, if you did not know that this does happen in the real world right now, sadly, yes, it does, and but I really do like the way this was done, and you really get a chance to see and further understand Hashirama as well as Madara. They're very similar. They're not really different with their ideals, and so I can really see them. So we see the beginnings of the friendship in the making. Now, what would be the ultimate cause of that friendship to sour? Obviously they don't know. One is a Shinju and the other is an Uchiha. That's obviously something, that they have to overcome, but it should be made easier, I assume, by the fact that they're talking now. They don't know, but, you know, um, yeah, so, alright, that's this chapter of Naruto 622.